Folks, we are here live. Can you believe it? On the 17th floor. I'm not going to tell you where we're at just yet, but this guest that we have coming on, it took me a whole year to get him on the show. This guy is the hardest guy to catch up with in Baltimore, and I'm so excited to finally have him on the show. And when you find out who he is, you'll be very, very excited. So if you ever have an ick or not feeling good, think about who you have to go to and who might help you out pay some of those bills. Be right back.
We made a pledge to do what's best for the health of our communities, and we continue to deliver on it every day for every one of our members. With access to a network of over 1 million providers, rewards for living healthy, and more care options than ever, we are CareFirst BlueCross BlueShield, and we are changing healthcare for all that we serve. At CareFirst, it's not just our name, it's our promise.
Welcome to the NoPixAfterDark podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Dante. Folks, I told you, we have nothing but the heavy hitters. It's 2024, the last call, the B-side. You know the B-side is always the coolest side of any record player. So, guys, guess who we have? We're CareFirst, right?
CareFirst.
CareFirst hanging out, and, we're the CEO. I'm sweating a little right now because the CEO over here, and he's here hanging out with us, Mr. Brian Pieninck. How are you? Pieninck.
You got it, Pieninck.
Pieninck, yeah, Pieninck,
Perfect.
yes. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing outstanding. I'm thrilled to be here.
Hey, I'm on the 17th floor. I had to get oxygen to walk up here, man. I was like too high up for a little bit. So
I tell people all the time, it's like Hoboken. If you want the best view of Baltimore, you come to Canton.
I love it. I love it. I always laugh because I used to be part of the merit, and I used to be mad that pool would be there, and then certain 3 o'clock, that shade would come, boom. Couldn't go swim in the pool no more. It cleared out right away.
That's it.
But that's all right. But thank you for having us come up here and hang out with you today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, this is the highlight of my week, honestly. I've been looking forward to this.
Appreciate it. So tell us, a little bit about what you do. What's your, real quick, and then about what you do and how we got here.
Yeah. What do I do? And it's funny because people always think, well, CEO, right? You must run things. And I would say I spend a lot of time doing what other people need from a day-to-day perspective. And that certainly starts at home as a father of 3 daughters. But also in the work that we do here at CareFirst, it's an amazing team effort. And it's really a manifestation of how we partner with and coordinate, not just inside the organization, but outside the organization with community across the public and private sector. And so that's really where my headspace is at pretty much every day.
When I look around Baltimore, I see CareFirst everywhere. You guys are in the community. You guys are everywhere just helping out. And I love seeing that because it's all about community. That's first thing when I think about CareFirst is community. I don't even think about what you guys do, but just community and how you help out and how you've helped out so many different causes in the city. And to that, kudos. I love seeing that. And that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, because to me, when I think of Baltimore, I think of CareFirst. Yeah. They're together.
I love that.
And that's where, we met a year ago.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'm gonna outdate myself. I was like, who's that guy? And I was there I've seen him at all these events. And everybody's always around him, but I need to talk. I need to meet this guy. And he's the head of CareFirst. And my friend's like, you really gonna go talk to him? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to you. And you had just an interview at another podcast at CIAA. And guess what? I said, hey, I love what you're doing. How can we make it work? Yeah. We're here today, a year later.
No, and that was with another one of my favorite people, Troy Stovall.
Yes.
And the folks at TEDCO. If you want to be with community, you have to be in community, right? That's the mindset. And so, the fact that just to hear you talk about it and to say that you think of CareFirst synonymous with Baltimore, to me, that's like, it warms my heart, right? That's mission accomplished. For us, and I think this is an important part of how we try to show up, is that this is not separate and distinct from my job, right? This isn't something different, something that we also do. This is core to who we are as an organization. And as a healthcare company, you think about what your mandate is, and if what you're really trying to do is care for the people who are entrusting you with their health and well-being when they're the most vulnerable in their life, I don't know how you do that effectively if you don't understand the social and environmental circumstances that exist in and around community. And what the data tells us is that that's what affects 80% of people's health. Your health, my health, the audience's health. All of us exist within the context of community. And so we've got a huge vested interest, and it's not an also, It's an and. It's a both. It's what we do in the core of the organization.
I mean, and again, you're in the community. I'll look up on my social media feeds. I see your teams at so many events throughout the whole entire region, and kudos to you guys for having that presence and knowing that you're there. So thank you so much for what you and your team do every day. So we really appreciate that. So are you from Maryland? Are you from Maryland, these parts?
I am not. And I remember when I first got here, I came to Maryland from Atlanta most recently, and I was at a crab feast. And it was a political fundraiser, and I'm not going to say whose fundraiser or which county I was in, but I was still getting to know people. And so I'm having this conversation, and people are saying, well, where are you from? You know, where are you from originally? And I said, I'm from Philadelphia, and this reminds me so much of home. And some people get that. Like if you've spent time in Philly, in the Philadelphia area, and you spent time in Baltimore, in the Baltimore area, some people get that, right? There is a sense of community. There's a fierce local identity, you know, and it goes down not just at the city level, but block by block, street by street, school by school. And it's a very blue collar pride, right? It's a sense of the connection of physical place, and it's a sense of like how each of us show up. And I love that about Baltimore. I love that's part of the fabric of this community, and that's very much how Philadelphia is. So I'm from Philadelphia originally, grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs, and this feels a lot like home to me.
I love that. I love that. Well, that's good, because I'm glad you brought the crabs up, and Philly, it's going to come at the end. It's going to come at the end of the episode, so I'm glad you brought that up. So what, like you said, you lived in hot Atlanta.
Yeah.
What made you want to leave hot Atlanta? I mean, I love Baltimore, but I love Atlanta too.
My friends from PA, when I was thinking about leaving, it was for a job opportunity.
Right.
And kind of like Baltimore, right? Like people tend to stay, and even when they leave, they tend to come back. And so I remember when I was making my first move, and I had friends like looking at me saying like, I can't believe you're picking a job over your friends and family. I can't believe and I said, well, you do realize, I was going to Tampa at the time. I said, you do realize like I can be home in 2 hours. Right. Like it's only a 2-hour flight away. And so I went from the Philadelphia area all the way down to Tampa, and have been working my way back up. And people look at me, they're like you got to the promised land, right? On the Gulf Coast, sunshine, water,
no snow.
Right? Like what were you thinking? And I would say I followed opportunities that I didn't even know existed, and I'm blessed for it. I met my wife in Tampa. She's been an unbelievable positive influence in my life, and was incredibly gracious to follow me to Atlanta when opportunity presented itself. We got married in Atlanta. We bought our first house in Atlanta. We had our first child in Atlanta. There's a lot of incredible memories there, and it was a beautiful place for us. But I was looking for something that was connected to community in a much bigger way, and I was looking for a place where people felt that, and it wasn't contrived, right? It wasn't something that you had to put on, but an organization that really saw itself as part of what was happening around it, and deeply invested. And you talk about how our people show up, right? Like you can set an example as a leader of an organization, but like you can't fake that. And our folks, they show up. Last year, they committed 70,000 volunteer hours to the communities that we serve. And it lives and it breathes, and it's part of who we are as an organization. And I was looking for that in my professional life. And so we moved up here in 2015, and this is home for us. We've had 2 daughters since then. And I would say this is as much home for us as a family as we've ever had.
I love that. So you told me a little bit, something I didn't know about you. That was really cool. And we're gonna go.
I know where this is going.
I don't know where we're going
All
with this. So tell me about you spinning records. And the name and your name you went by, please.
I can't. So the name I went by is a deeply held secret.
Okay.
So I have not shared this.
Okay.
There's maybe somebody out there in the audience, right, that may know this.
Please check us. Okay, when you know the name, put a comment on this.
And people try to trip me up on this all the time. But so I started DJing when I was 14.
Okay.
And I would say, there's things that you don't even know that you're learning when you're learning them, right? And I would say public speaking.
Oh yeah.
And the power of communication and the ability to take things and communicate it to people, right? I learned a lot of that, right? First from my mom, who used to send me to the bookshelf, to find the dictionary when I didn't know something. But DJing, when I was 14 years old, myself and a couple of friends started a DJing company, Surround Sound.
Okay.
It was, and back then that was a thing, right? Now the kids at home, they're saying surround sound.
What is that?
But surround sound, mobile disc jockeys. But we had a company that we started out of the second floor of my parents' house. There was myself and two other guys. One of those guys was 16 and could drive, which was like clutch, back at the time. And two of us were pretty young at the time, and so we started this company, and we DJ'd everything. Like if it was a party, we were there, and then eventually we got into production around Battle of the Bands and local band competitions. Worked at a local nightclub and roller skating rink, which is actually how I got into healthcare. Little known fact.
Okay.
One of the folks that was running a youth hockey league at this skating rink that I DJ'd at worked in IT at a healthcare company, and that's how I've got my first introduction to healthcare. Yeah.
We got an exclusive here, folks.
Yep.
Exclusive.
So it's like if I tie all these things back that I'm doing now, right, to those roots, like I learned a lot, and I set myself on a path I didn't even know existed.
Wow. So now I'm dying. Everybody's probably wondering. What was your genre? What was your genre of choice? Were you house? Were you deep jungle?
I love
Were you
music.
techno?
I love music. And I would say my musical tastes span the gamut. And it's there's very few things in life that bring me more joy than watch someone play, watch someone perform. And if it's live music, I'm in. It doesn't matter. But some of my best memories, I love the shuffle skaters, late skate, and just the rhythm and seeing people that could really lay it down, and just their commitment to craft and art and how all that came together, the music and the motion. And so those are some amazing memories for me. But if it's music, I love it.
It's funny. Like smooth music soothes the soul for me.
Yeah.
If I'm having a long day, music just cheers me up. And it's like we talked earlier, 5-hour car ride. Music probably help. Yeah. Music might help you out, just to get you through it. But it
takes that energy that you have inside. It's kind of like being around the water. Like there's just something about it that speaks to your soul, and it creates just this calming effect, and it puts you in a place, in a space that I think a lot of other things just can't.
Now, we talk a little bit about, you said about healthcare. Like, so you met the IT guy, and that's how a connection to healthcare, you started to get into it?
Yeah.
Did you ever think about healthcare at that? I mean, were you pretty young at that point, or were you?
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people see folks that have achieved some degree of success in some field, and it's easy to make up all kinds of stories about how they got there. And for me, I would say, I got there by accident. And I would love to tell you that I had this like grand plan, that my parents had my life mapped out for me, but none of those things would actually be true. My folks were incredible people, are incredible people, now Maryland residents.
Oh, wow.
And they really raised us. And I think the most important things that my parents really instilled in my brother and I were a sense of possibilities, right? And even if we weren't directed in a particular way, we were encouraged, to explore opportunity. We were encouraged to really believe that what we put in is what we were capable of getting out, and that there really weren't limitations and barriers to what might become us in our lives. And that really sticks with you. And so I started working at a very young age. Growing up, my father worked 3 jobs. My mother took the civil service exam when we were kids and went to work for the United States Postal Service. My brother and I grew up, latchkey kids. And work was a big part of our life. Music was a big part of our life. And the reality is that when I got to high school, my parents were always very supportive of the idea of us constantly learning and growing, but planning for traditional education, planning for college was not part of that experience. Right. And so, we really hadn't saved, for either my brother and I to go to a 4-year school. And so I was fortunate to have some other people in my life that encouraged me to get out and just explore possibilities and options. And in that process, my senior year of high school, one of the guys that I worked with at this skating rink came to me and said, "Hey, we need some people that can program, that can do some light programming and database design." And back then in 1996, like that was still kind of an emerging field.
Yeah, it was.
And we would love to have you come this summer. And I taught myself how to program out of a book. And that summer I took an IT contractor job, and they put me in a closet. And when I say, like, this is not literally a closet, literally a closet, right? It was me and a bunch of stuff in storage and a desk and a chair and computer equipment. And I started building databases that allowed them to manage essentially electronic eligibility and data files that were coming in. Wow. And this was all new to the organization. Up until that point, it was a lot of paper. And it was interesting because, that was my first exposure, and it has stuck with me ever since, because I learned how that company worked from the inside. And that opportunity that summer, that contracting job that summer, turned into an offer for full-time employment a year later. And I started my journey working full-time, going to school part-time, and shout out to anybody that works at or is going to a community college. I would not have a college degree and a college education today without the flexibility of a community college and what that offered me. But I started going to school at night, 2 nights a week at a community college, and that's how I started my educational journey. And I learned the business by showing up to work every day, and I got an amazing education by going to school every night. And it took me 20 years to graduate with my undergrad. But I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, and I wouldn't trade what I was able to pick up at both what was happening in the day and what was happening at the night, and how that shaped my mindset and my perspective about how to be an effective leader at some point in my career.
I love that story, because that's what the podcast NoPix started off about, was like telling my son, hey, go through adversity.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is, how long it takes you to get there, make it happen. You might go through some things that trial tribulations, but guess what? Keep on pushing. Keep on doing what you gotta do. Keep on moving.
I love that, and I'd love to dig into that with you, Aaron, because I would say, like, I never thought of it as an adversity. You know what I'm saying? And honestly now, like, I don't think of it as adversity.
Okay.
I would say my path was not traditional, but I learned a lot about what actual adversity is.
Okay.
In this journey, and the honest truth of it is that while it may not be the typical path that most people took, I think what I got out of that is something more than what I would have gotten out if I had taken the normal path. And the people that I met, right, the systems and structures that I interacted with, they weren't trying to keep me from moving forward, right? And so I had an incredible opportunity to grow and progress, but I'm very, very aware that my path, right, that's something different and unique and special, and not everybody would be afforded the same opportunity. And so I think of my path as something different, but I don't think of it as an adverse path. It's a path that taught me a lot, and part of what it taught me is how do we make that experience more accessible to more people?
I like that. I mean, I think, Don, and then we'll talk a little further about your company and what things you guys have for employees who, when they go back to school and whatnot. We'll talk about that second half. So working your way through the healthcare system, health field, and did you think you wanted to stay in there forever, or did you think you wanted to move somewhere else? Was that something like, it's a cool job, I'm doing it from inside out, I'll do this until I go somewhere else?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts like?
I spend time with a lot of folks that are young in career, right, and mentoring and just answering questions. And what I find a lot of times is people are always trying to figure out, like, so how did you get to where you are? What were the decisions that you made? One of the things I will tell you, Aaron, is that I never thought about what I was going to do next, right? It wasn't like I was planned out and I said, okay, 2 years from now I'm going to be here, or 5 years from now I'm going to be here. That works for some people. For me, what I tried to do is I tried to get the most out of every stop along the way. Bring the most value I could possibly bring, learn the most that I could possibly learn, contribute as much as I possibly could, and hopefully put myself in a position that I would have good choices. And I would say, as much as anything else that drives my beliefs, like, I coach people to think about, like, what does success really mean? And what I would say for me, success is the degree to which I can make decisions in my life. And so when you're contributing to the decisions of your life, when you are actively participating in the direction of your life and things aren't happening to you, right? But you've got a hand on that wheel, like, to me, that's the greatest form of success. Like, we all want to be empowered and in a position to actually affect the future of our lives. And so I try to be open. And I would do the best that I could. I would learn the most that I could. I would contribute the most that I could. And I would be open to what might allow me to grow and progress next without a preconceived notion of the best possible path. And so you have to be aware of when opportunity presents itself. But I tried to be open. And I took a lot of non-traditional opportunities, not just at the outset, but every step along the way. For me, and I think that's been a really amazing learning experience.
Has that made you probably like a lot more diverse on how you look at things and view things differently, because you've been in so many different realms and different people? Does that make you feel like you're a better boss going forward?
I would like to think I've learned, right? Okay. I would like to believe I'm still learning. Okay. And when I stop learning, I probably need to do something different. No, I would say a few things that really shaped me. I think, first my parents like really just encouraged us to explore and to imagine and to throw ourselves into things and to be open to possibilities. We didn't have a limit or a failure of imagination. And I would say the effect that had on me, like when I think about community and the work that we do in the community, one of the things that I say often is that the greatest failure of community, the greatest failure of society is the failure of imagination. It's when people cannot imagine something better and more for themselves. And it's when societies can't imagine something better and more for people, right? It's that failure of imagination. And I was fortunate, we didn't have everything, but what we had was an imagination, a belief, that we could continue to move and progress. And I would say that was hugely important to my thinking and to my development. The other thing I would say is moving around and traveling. Getting out of the place that I grew up, leaving neighborhoods, leaving friends and family and going and meeting new people in new places and getting exposed, to how communities work and function and different ideas and perspectives. It just widens your field of view. And that was hugely important to me in terms of how I think about, showing up in community and working with folks in the organization, and a big part of how we think about directing this company.
All right, so folks, we'll be right back. We're going to learn about this beautiful building we're in. Also redone, 17th floor. Talk about some of the initiatives for 2024, recap 2023, what's happening. How can we sign up to volunteer for any events going forward? We'll be right back at these measures, folks.
We made a pledge to do what's best for the health of our communities, and we continue to deliver on it every day for every one of our members. With access to a network of over 1 million providers, rewards for living healthy, and more care options than ever, we are CareFirst BlueCross BlueShield, and we are changing healthcare for all that we serve. At CareFirst, it's not just our name, it's our promise.
And folks, we are back. We just heard an amazing story about, he isn't a DJ name, but his life story, Mr. Brian. Really appreciate you hanging out in NoPixAfterDark. I'm hanging out in your beautiful building, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, CareFirst, for hanging out. Appreciate you. I
love being here, and maybe someday off camera, we can have the conversation about the DJ name.
It's all good. Well, you know what? How about I have a whole bunch of shows coming up, and I have a live DJ at the shows.
There you go.
So people will do a little two-step after the show.
Perfect.
Try to get everybody excited. So let's talk about CareFirst. What you guys are, again, huge in the city. You're anchor in the city. People know who you guys are. Tell us some of the responsibilities you guys have for Baltimore and the region and DC.
Yeah.
As an anchor.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about anchor institutions. And I would say we're not the only anchor institution, but we take our role in community incredibly seriously. And we think about it really in a variety of ways, Aaron. One is we employ 6,000 people in and around this region, and thousands of people specifically in and around greater Baltimore. And as a company that has two headquarters, we have a headquarters in Baltimore, we have a headquarters of Washington, D.C. This is the part of the fabric of the organization. And so we think about it from that perspective, right, is what is the reality of our inside world at CareFirst, and how does that relate to our outside world at CareFirst? But we also take care of millions of people in this city and in this region. And we don't think about it as insurance. We don't think about it as a business relationship. We really think about it as like a human being is entrusting us to care for them when they are most financially vulnerable, when they're most physically vulnerable, mentally, emotionally vulnerable, and creating that connection and understanding the human beings that exist at the end of that relationship is a critical part of what drives our culture. And so we think about that, and I would say are right now really on a heavy investment track to ensure that when we show up as a company, but also show up as individual representatives of the company, that we're showing up in the right and best way with community. And so that's a mindset that I would say has been part of this journey for us, specifically over the past 5 years, as we've really brought that in to the core of what we do as an organization.
What do you, as a pillar, basically an anchor, the responsibility, do you feel a very heavy burden? Like when people say, hey, can you, is CareFirst is in here? Yeah. It's not legit. Like, do you feel that? Do people come up and say, hey, are you guys going to be here? Are you guys going to participate? I'm sure you get 1,000 requests or to be a part of things.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Like, how do you weed it out? Because so many people want you guys as a pillar. They see you guys as, hey, you can go, this is a Baltimore institution. It's like Hopkins. It's like University of Maryland. You guys are here. How do you guys decipher from all that?
Yeah, never a burden. Never a burden. And my folks probably get tired of hearing me say this, but everything that I look at is looked at through the lens of it's an opportunity, right? It's a responsibility. And so we've got an opportunity and a responsibility, I think, to contribute, in a meaningful way. And the benefits of that, right? It's not just the right thing; it's the smart and effective thing to do as a company. And I think this is something that organizations sometimes miss. And so, as we look at inclusive economic growth, as we look at investing in infrastructure, as we look at investing in local neighborhoods, the sum of those individual parts equals a much greater whole. And that greater whole is not just felt by all of us who live here. It's also felt by the business community, right, who really relies on the availability of qualified workforce, and for customers who have the financial means to purchase goods and services. And so all of these things are interconnected. And one of the things that we've been really intently focused on is, like, none of the things that we do in community, it's not charity, right? It's part of what we contribute to the performance of community, to the performance of the city, to the performance of the region, and to the state. And we all benefit, right? We all benefit from that. I think when we're doing the things that we're capable of doing, when we're making the investments that we're capable of making, those returns come back both individually and collectively.
Yeah, I think about, how did you guys navigate yourselves through the pandemic? There was a lot of things where you couldn't see some of your employees every day.
Yep.
The whole way of life has changed, but we have a lot of people are getting sick and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And they're like, I hope I have insurance to cover this.
Yep.
How did you guys as a company navigate the pandemic?
I think anytime you deal with something like that, and what I would say, Aaron, is that there's not a single person that you can talk to that could credibly tell you they knew exactly what to do.
Right.
You couldn't say that.
Right.
There was no playbook that existed. This country, this world, had not seen in this modern era, in the modern era of business and industry, let alone healthcare, something like we experienced through the pandemic. And so I would say humility, right? Start with a healthy recognition of what you don't and can't possibly know, and know who you are and what's important to you, right? You can know that, you should know that. And I think if you anchor to who you are as an organization, and in our particular case, it's all about access, affordability, equity, and quality. And if those principles are true, right, it's not just what you say, but how it shows up in your behavior, then that becomes the guide for the decisions that you make. And I wouldn't say we made perfect decisions, but we employed the people that we employed through a public health crisis. We showed up in community to help organizations and individuals who didn't benefit from the structure of society through these incredible challenges. We partnered with many of the organizations that you just talked about, as well as the city and state government. And I would say we're better for the experience, I think, because we learned how to really show up at our best, individually and collectively. And we did that with a clear focus on who we are and why we exist.
Thank you. I always ask that question because everybody's like, we managed, we figured things out and got through it. Like you said, nobody's ever dealt with something like that ever. And so thank you for answering that.
Absolutely.
For us. So tell us about a high overview of your year 2023, a recap.
Yep.
Some of the successes and highlights you guys have had and wins.
Yeah, this past year, and I would say healthcare in general, it's an unbelievably dynamic space. And so for anybody out there that's thinking about what they're going to do in their lives and their careers, who may be more careful planners than I was in my career, healthcare is an opportunity-rich environment. And if you want to think about it, both practically but also financially, 18.3%. So the United States GDP, 18.3% of the entire U.S. economy is healthcare related. It is a massive part of the economy. And I would say that brings both opportunity and challenge. But for people who are thinking about how they grow and progress in community and what opportunity looks like, but also who want to give back to community, healthcare is an unbelievable space to be in right now and incredibly dynamic. There's a lot of change, and the pace of change in healthcare right now is greater than what I've seen in the 20 plus years that I've been doing this, Aaron. And I would say 2023 for us was really about continuing to lean in to what that future looks like. And so you've got this incredible part of the U.S. economy, this really important relationship that exists with people, and you also have the realization that healthcare doesn't work for everyone in the way that it needs to work. And for us, really shifting that paradigm and leaning hard into really the creative destruction of the system that we have today and building in its place something better and more that meets the reality of the needs of everyone in the community. That's what has dictated so much of our strategy and our vision over the course of the past several years. And 2023 was a huge year for us to make sure that that was showing up even more in our products and our services and our practices and just our day-to-day decisions. And so we did a few things that people weren't expecting. And I remember talking to folks at the beginning of the year and saying, hey, look, you're going to see me showing up in Annapolis when session starts. And I'm not going to be there to testify on an insurance bill. I'm going to be there talking about public transportation. I'm going to be there talking about, what's happening in housing. And we're going to be there talking about, really concepts that affect the social environmental circumstance of the people that we care about. And that was something new for them. And what we found is like leaning into that space when you're an anchor institution, like people welcome you as long as you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work.
Right.
And there's an incredible amount of work. And so some of the highlights for me, we really kicked off in earnest our West Baltimore Workforce Development Program in partnership with Coppin State University, another phenomenal anchor institution and someone, Anthony Jenkins, Dr. Jenkins. If you haven't gotten him on your show, you need to do that. He's got a phenomenal vision and just unbelievable energy. Center for Urban Families, Joe Jones partnered with us. But this was a journey for us, and we really started out thinking about our investment in West Baltimore as a healthcare investment, and we've got some really smart, well-qualified people that put together some plans, and then we took those plans to the community, and we sat down and we have a conversation, and they basically told us all the things that you were thinking about in planning are not things that we're interested or need, and so there's no substitute for going out, right? If you want to be with community, you have to be in community,
Right.
and so we went out and we were with community, and community gave us an education. The West Baltimore Community collectively gave us an education on what would be most important and impactful for the West Baltimore community. And at the end of the day, it was career opportunities, right? And I say career opportunities, not just jobs. There's a lot of jobs out there, but career opportunities that can shape and affect the trajectory of an individual life and collectively the trajectory of community. And we started to look at the landscape and say, well, who do we partner with to do this? And how do we begin to address this? And there was a few things that we thought about. All right, we've got to have a voice on transportation because the West Baltimore community is historically disconnected from opportunity because of a lack of adequate transportation infrastructure. That is a fact. And we know that's a fact because if you want to get to any job within an hour, any job within an hour, reasonably within this region, no problem if you own a car. If you don't own a car, you can get to 9% of those same opportunities.
Right.
And so when you start to talk about the trajectory of a human life and when you start to talk about what real adversity is, right? When you scrub away 90% of the opportunities that somebody has and you leave them with the remaining 9%, right? You have already created a dynamic and a situation that by definition does not enable someone's imagination, let alone their ability to continue to grow and progress. And so said, yes, we've got to lean into transportation infrastructure. We've got to lean into transportation policy. We have to think about the physical place and space and how we allow people to move in community and across community so that we can create that trajectory. But transportation infrastructure, it takes decades.
A long time.
Right? It's the policy making, it's the funding, it's the physical work, and we are fortunate to have a mayor and a governor that are focused on this and community leaders that are focused on this, but it takes time. So you need to do that work that takes time, but you can't wait for that.
Yeah.
And
there's no way.
You can't wait for it, right?
Let's be honest, we were close enough to the red line when it first closed, and we were actually we're probably a year or two from actually shoveling the ground.
Yeah.
And that took a long time.
That's right.
And now I think even with the red line coming back and whatever it may be, a rail or or a bus, whatever line, whatever it may be, I think that's great for people to get.
Bus rapid transit.
Yeah, bus rapid transit, yes.
Yep.
East to west,
it
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I saw when it was on some news channel, reporters were talking about how people get to Amazon.
Yeah.
I think so. How did they be able to get 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours before their shift starts?
Yep.
And I like that you're talking about that. And that's interesting. I did not know that you guys dipped your toes in that.
Yeah. So we started to work through the Greater Baltimore Committee and the Greater Washington Partnership, and in partnership with the state and city government on really advocating for thoughtful transportation policy, but also transportation investment. But we said that's not good enough, right? That's the thing that you do for the long term, and that's really important. That I think businesses like ours put our voice into the mix. What can we do right now?
Right.
What can we do right now? And we started to look at the landscape and say, well, don't go it alone. Community educated us. We're going to go with community. And don't go it alone. Think about the people that you want to surround yourself with, the partners that you want to work with. And Tim Regan at Whiting Turner, around the same time that we were doing this work, and Calvin Butler at Exelon, they had invested in Touchpoint. So they created a physical space, where I think some of this opportunity could live. And in the process of that, Tim had made the move to purchase the target when the target pulled out of Mondawmin. And I went back and we had a conversation with our team, and we said, we're going to go in partnership, and we're going to make sure that these investments are actually connected, and that we support not just the physical build out, but also the services that need to exist around that to create opportunity. And so President Jenkins was kind enough to give us space on campus at Coppin State University to launch our workforce development program. Joe Jones at Center for Urban Families helped us with the support and services. We graduated 100% of our first cohort.
Love it.
Typically, there's about a 30% dropout rate. And we got there because there was nothing that we weren't willing to respond to within that class. You have a child care challenge, we're going to figure that out with you.
I love it.
You got a transportation challenge, we're going to figure that out with you. It was really a mindset of we want to create an environment that actually helps people to default to some success.
I love that.
And so we're moving on to our second cohort, but now we're going to take 20,000 square feet at the village at Mondawmin, and we're going to launch that this year. And that's going to be a workforce development program, but also a location for jobs and career opportunities that are dedicated to the West Baltimore community. And these are high-paying jobs, right? These are above living wage jobs with fantastic benefits, with tuition reimbursement, and with a chance to enter into that massive healthcare economy and hopefully inform the necessary changes to make that healthcare economy work more effectively, more equitably for every person in every community that we serve.
I love the word that sticks out the most. You said a lot of great things is careers.
Yeah.
Not a job, a career.
Yep.
I love giving you the opportunity. People may not get the opportunity.
Yeah.
I love the opportunity. People might not, and it's right, not that far away, and you adapted. Health, you said childcare.
Yeah.
Transportation. That's what I'm talking about, because a lot of people don't have those opportunities. And you take a lot, I don't take it for granted, because I know I'm fortunate to have a car to get around. But most other people can't do that.
That's right.
And the fact that you guys are doing that, kudos to you guys doing that. And again, I go back to what I said in the beginning, community.
Yeah.
This may be named episode community. I don't know, but but that's one thing that I really enjoy. I love hearing about that.
Yeah.
That's a huge highlight. What's 2024? What's in store? Anything that's surprising that you can drop for us? Out?
No, I think in 2024 it's going to be the continued growth and expansion of efforts like this.
Okay.
And so we're going to continue to build off these concepts. And yes, in West Baltimore, we've actually got a project underway right now. Okay. In East Baltimore, we're looking at an opportunity in Ward 8 down in Washington, D.C. Okay. And so we're thinking about how we effectively scale. And I would say, from my perspective, Aaron, you never actually arrive. It's not like you get to this destination and say, look at look at what we accomplished.
Right.
It's the constant pursuit, right, that I think is what's going to fuel us. And I think we're seeing some early success with these partnerships and these programs. We want to build off of that success. We want to stay humble, about the things that we're going to continue to grow and learn, and course adjustments and course corrections we need to make. And we want all of those things to be part of the core of how we run this organization. And so we're going to be focused on growing services. We've expanded our service set. We're going to be focused on increasing the role that we play in partnership on the public and private sector side to ensure that the Maryland economy, the regional economy, can continue to grow and prosper in an inclusive way. But all of these things are part of our strategic agenda.
That's great. That's great. What do you want people to walk away from our conversation today? What do you want people to walk away with? Wow, CareFirst, this is what it's all about. What do you want? Because, people watch. There's about 17,000 that watch or listen or whatever they make. Yeah. But what do you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, I would say for me, if this has sparked anything, it's thinking differently about the opportunity that we have to make an impact. And I would love it, right? If some portion of the 17,000 people that are part of this audience, and hopefully that growing audience, and that growing audience nationally that's tuning into Aaron and the work that he's doing and what he's choosing to use his voice for and lift up, not just in this community, but more broadly, if there's one thing that you take away, absolutely, we'd love to have you here at CareFirst BlueCross BlueShield, but this is not the only place where you have an opportunity to make an impact. And really thinking about the choices that we make and the work that we do, these aren't mutually exclusive. It's not either show up to a job or do something positive, impactful community. It's really bringing those two things together and saying, well, how do I carve out a career for myself, a life for myself that allows me to be active and present as a community member, a community participant, but also a community investor. And every single person that's part of this experience today, the work that you do, you can make that choice, and we can all make that impact. We just have to decide that those two things are actually connected in a thoughtful way.
Gotcha. I love it. But guess what, folks? You know he's not off the hook that easy. He can't get off the hook. That's not, we don't roll that way. You know, it's always a good time, but speed round.
Yeah.
All right. You're a Philly guy.
Yes.
All right, because you know I'm going to go there. I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
Best cheesesteak. We're not going to go there. We're not.
No,
gonna
I
go
can't do that.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
You know. But are you a big Eagles fan?
Yeah. So I was born in Philadelphia. Is the answer?
Okay.
And what I try to explain to people is when you're born in Philadelphia, the Eagles, the Phillies, the Flyers, the Sixers is part of your DNA.
Right.
Right. And so I may have left Philadelphia, but every Philadelphia sports team is still part of my DNA. And I feel blessed and fortunate that I've got an AFC team in Baltimore and an AL team in Baltimore that I can root with every fiber of my being, but I can't get that Philly sport thing out.
You know they play next year, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm a Cowboys fan, that's why.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Aaron, we were doing so well. I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
Now, all right, here's one, because I know this is weird. In Baltimore, we call them sprinkles.
Yeah.
You guys call them Jimmy's and
Jimmy's. That's right.
What's your favorite ice cream?
My favorite ice cream?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I've definitely got a soft spot for a strawberry milkshake.
Oh,
Not gonna lie.
Okay. So then, if you're a Maryland guy, Snowballs or ice cream? Which one?
I gotta go ice cream.
Snowballs, come on, no egg
I gotta go ice cream.
Hold up.
Yep. Oh, but I will tell you. So I remember when I was I was born in Northeast Philly.
Okay.
And I can still remember we had a guy that would walk up and down the streets in the neighborhood, and he had a cart with a block of ice, and he would do the handshake, right? And like, to me, like, that's what it should. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it's at.
Okay, shaved ice.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not something that comes out of a machine. You know what I mean? Like, you actually have to put some elbow grease into it. But if you gave me the choice between the shave ice and ice cream, I got to go ice cream.
Okay. Yeah. Crabs or crab cakes?
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
If it's the right crab cake, I got to go crab cake. It can't be something with too much, not like the filler, and like, if it's the right crab cake, I got to go crab.
You don't like getting your hands dirty, getting the crabs and
That's
hands.
An experience, you know.
I like it because, say for instance, you and I and your team are all hanging out, we're eating crabs together.
Yeah.
All of our phones are down.
Yeah.
We're talking, we're having the conversation. Because nobody's going to pick your phone up with their crab, not with crab hands.
So I'd never had Maryland crabs. When growing up, my parents, on a special occasion, this is my brother's favorite, right? Like, they would bring home crab legs.
Okay.
And these were like the bigger crab legs. And this was a big deal for us.
King
right?
crab legs,
and it was, and I was like, all right, like, that's what crab is, And when I came down to Maryland and I realized how hard you had to work to get like this tiny little piece of meat, I was like, this is more about a social experience than it is about eating.
It really.
You know what I mean? I could be here all week and not get a meal.
It really is. Chicken wings, flats or drums?
I gotta go flats.
Blue cheese or ranch?
Neither.
Ooh,
no
okay.
Sauce.
Okay. All right, no sauce. Right.
Hot as you can make them.
Okay, not honey Old Bay?
Sauce.
No honey Old Bay.
No. I like that traditional spicy. I will put hot sauce on anything.
All right, if we jumped on your car right now, what music will we be listening to?
Oh, Aaron, I would give you full control of the playlist.
No.
But here's why. This is how I would get a window into your soul, right? This is how I would get to know you. I'm like, what's Aaron putting on this car?
How you gonna turn it back on me? I'm sorry for hopping in your car. But if I hopped in your car, I'll probably put Prince on.
Oh, I love Prince.
I love Prince. That's
so I saw Prince 6 times.
Wow.
And I try to tell people, and he would come through Philadelphia, but I try to tell people, one of the greatest shows, one of the greatest performers, one of the greatest artists and musicians of all time, you go to that concert and it's not just about the music, it was about the experience. The man was phenomenal. I was a huge Prince fan.
Yeah, I saw him one of his last concerts in Baltimore.
Yeah.
When he came here, and it was, I was blown away.
Well, half a dozen wardrobe changes, playing 4 different instruments,
Yeah.
and just absolutely crushing the audience with the energy that he brought. I mean, I was just a huge fan of Prince.
So I'm leading you to the next one then.
All right.
Best Super Bowl halftime performance.
For me personally?
Best Super Bowl.
For me personally?
We're asking
Okay.
you. We're asking.
So the first Super Bowl that I went to was when the Eagles played the Patriots in Jacksonville and lost. So second only to the Dallas Cowboys in terms of my animus is the New England Patriots. I have not gotten over that yet. But Paul McCartney played the halftime show.
Oh,
and it
Paul
was,
McCartney. Okay.
Well, and what I loved about it is that it was Paul McCartney, a piano, and the field.
Okay.
And that was it, right? It was all about the music.
I like that.
And it was an incredible experience. I think it had something to do with the fact that it was the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And at that point, it looked like we might actually pull it out. But it was an incredible experience.
No, for me, it was Prince when he was singing Purple Rain and it started raining.
Oh, yeah. That was
Awesome for me.
Yeah.
That was for me. And let's a little peek behind the curtain. On your day off, and you just have time, what's your favorite thing to do?
Family.
Love it.
Hands down. No question. I have an unbelievable partner in life. My wife is just an amazing human being that has and continues to make me better. And I've got 3 girls, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And that's my world, right? I mean, you think about the things that you do and why you do it and why it's important. That's my world. And so as much time as I can get with them.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Brian, for coming on the
Yeah,
show.
it's a pleasure.
We finally made it happen. I thank you so much. And folks, this episode, amazing. Thank you so much for CareFirst, their team. This has been a year in the making. Thank you for your time. Hopefully we can do a part 2 at the site down in Medina or wherever. But thank you for hanging out. We can maybe do a live show. Folks, love, peace. We're out.